We believe. We believe in the one presence and the one power active in the universe, and we call it good, and God is what? Oh, we call it God. And God is what? Good. We call it good. We believe that who is divine potential in action? We are. We are all people, not just the people sitting in the room today. All people. We believe in the inherent goodness of humanity. We believe that our planet is here as our mother, our earth. It is up to us to care for it, to embrace it, to be a part of it. We believe that we are not separate from that which we call God, but we are one with all that is. We believe that we are those individualized expressions. We believe in inclusivity and diversity. We believe in the song Weave. Weave us together. There are many, many, many opinions and thoughts and beliefs in this very room, much less this planet. Yes. 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 We believe that love is the answer and love is the way. We believe that we are the ones that will make the change in the world. Do we believe it? Yes. Then why don't we live it? Ouch. Maybe we don't believe it, but maybe we do believe it. We believe in human rights and morality and dignity for all people. Or do we? I just spent the week at the Parliament of World's Religions, which was out of this world, off the charts, phenomenal, amazing, expansive, exhausting, exhilarating, and a whole bunch of other E words and lots of other words. There were over 7,000 people there, maybe more. And there were different numbers, so I'm going to throw numbers out. Don't quote me. You can quote me, but I might be wrong. There were over, I think, like 85 different countries or something like that, and over 200 different, think about this, 200 different religions, faiths, practices, and traditions represented. We think we're special as unity, and we are. We think we're unique in unity, and we are. But the Parliament of World Religions was created, I mentioned this last week, it was created in 1883. Our co-founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, were at that very first convening in Chicago. And 100 years later, in 1993, we also had a contingency of unity people there. It was created to cultivate harmony among the world's spiritual traditions and foster their engagement with guiding instructions in order to achieve a more peaceful, just, and sustainable world. The thought behind it was that when we join together, the faith communities of the world, strong in our individual faiths, that's when the world will change. They, meaning we, meaning the Parliament, has been doing phenomenal work. I was so blown away by the work of some of the presenters that were there. There were hundreds, there were thousands of presenters and talks. They had a 2-hour main session every single day. Well, each person had 5 minutes or something like that. So how many is 2 hours divided by 5 minutes? That's a lot of speakers every day. That was in a 2-hour segment. The other morning, my friend counted, just because we were curious, at 8 a.m. Friday morning. There were 46 choices of workshops to go to. Now, you could make a plan to go to a workshop, but the likelihood of you actually getting there was slim because they kept changing the rooms and the times. And the place was massive. We were in McCormick Place. Massive. I walked more this week than I walked all year, and I'm a walker. But this year's theme was a call to consciousness, defending freedom and human rights. This is what they said about it. This is the most important and largest gathering of the world's religious and spiritual leaders and practitioners, uniting in a collective, courageous, and clear reply to the most dangerous crisis confronting us today globally, authoritarianism. Every faith has at its core a summoning to ease suffering of others, to contribute to a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. This week, we were called to stand together in defense of the dignity, freedom, and human rights for all. The collective power, the collective intention was palpable. There was music from all faiths. There was performances. There were talks. There were movies. There were documentaries. There was plays. There was interactive workshops. There were panels. There was so much activity. The booth, the exhibit hall, the booths, it went on for miles, it felt like, with all kinds of different people with different belief systems. The themes, well, I think I said them already. Inclusivity, dialogue, listening. One of the workshops I did was a listening circle. It was actually a listening circle on the complex issue of abortion, and it was extremely powerful. But the listening circle theme was all through the conference. I mean, we thought we were unique. Once again, we thought, oh, this will be different. Well, it was, but it also was all week long. But the power of listening, deeply listening for the commonality, not the differences. Listening to the commonality, listening for the commonality, listening for the shared values. There's a document called the Global Ethic that the Parliament created 30 years ago, so it's a 30-year celebration of it, basically. And it responds to an urgent practical need as well as a deep spiritual hunger for clear moral guidance. There's 5 commitments. Commitment to a culture of nonviolence and respect for life. Commitment to a culture of solidarity and just economic order. Commitment to a culture of tolerance and life truthfulness. Commitment to a culture of equal rights and partnership between men and women. And now we expand that to include all genders or not all genders or non-genders, however the correct statements of that are. Commitment to a culture of sustainability and care for the earth. There were different tracks for different aspects of that. So there were 5 different tracks. So you could hear about all of that. And we signed our commitment to it, or I did. There was so many things. One of the panels that I attended, and I can't even get them all straight because there were so many of them, but one of the panels was about nonviolence or about peace. It was a panel from the youth perspective. So the panel was for youth. The first girl was Zoroastrian. She's a high school senior. She spoke so eloquently about peace. And by the way, this was her second parliament to speak at. I'm thinking she's 17 now, right? Wow. Then the next was a Baha'i, and she actually has a role and a position at the United Nations. The third one was a Sikh, and she was also young. She's a freshman in college at Princeton, starting like today. No, tomorrow. Starting tomorrow. Literal, she was like going to from that presentation to her dorm for the first time. Puts it in perspective a little bit. And then Baha'i, I said Baha'i, and then a Muslim. But what was interesting about these kids, and they were kids, was that their commonality. They spoke about what their faith believes about peace. They each spoke about their own experience. They also spoke about the work that they're doing to promote peace. But the commonality through all 4 of these young people was that peace is a divine right. Peace already is. Peace is, and we learn in Philippians that peace that passes all understanding already is. So these young people were talking about what we do as humanity is we destroy peace. Like, can you just let your mind be blown? You know, we're striving for peace. We have it backwards. We have to oh, wait a minute, it's already there. We have to quit destroying peace. I think it was the Muslim who said that peace is a journey away from disharmony. And that it's not actually destination, but if we make the world a little better today in our little tiny circle, then we're moving towards peace. The sick, beautiful young woman spoke about the need, the necessity inside her religious tradition for the youth voices to be heard, because the elders are in an old paradigm. Ouch. But true, right? And most of us truly, we bounce and stay in the old paradigm a lot. But to bring the youth, because they're of a new generation, they see oneness in a way that we don't. Like, they're coming in awake, some of these kids. And they're coming in committed to making the difference in the world. There was a panel, it was 4 women. 2 were actually in the room. 1 was on the phone, and I'm not sure what happened to the 4th one. But they were talking about Afghan and the Taliban and what's happening there. They had spent one of the speakers had spent 20 years working as an American Muslim, I believe, in Afghan for human rights, primarily around education, girls and women, but education. And when that thing happened, it's been, 2 years now, I think, when the Taliban came in again. And they were here in the States, and they said, what can we do? And one of the women said, well, we have to go. And the second woman, the one who was speaking at this time, she said, great, who's paying for it? And she goes, there's nobody to pay for it this time. We're on our own. And so the 4 of them went. And they went. And there had been 6 months since an American had stepped onto the Afghan soil. Nobody. They were the first. 4 women in Afghanistan. And they met with the people, and they met with the women and the children in the villages, but they also met with the Taliban. With some, not the top guys, but they met with the Taliban. And they met with all kinds of leaders, and a majority of those leaders, well, they were all men, but the majority of the leaders that they met with were men who supported, who wanted their children, their girls, to have education. But in the meantime, there's no food. They said, what do you eat? They say, we collect grass and boil it. Think about this. So they connected with several layers, several different stories they told about talking to somebody kind of high up, who then took it to the next layer of the Taliban and said, we need to feed our people, number one. We need to educate our girls, number one. Now they're also basically on house arrest. They're basically imprisoned in their homes. And a girl at this stage cannot leave the house without a man. It could be a boy, it could be her son, but without a male. And the stories were outrageous, but every single man that took their ideas, that took their proposals up the ladder inside the Taliban was received. One time they even said, well, give us a proposal. So he came back to the girl who was speaking, the woman who was speaking, and she whipped out a proposal, in the next day. And she sent it back with him, and he took it back. And they went, And within a week, they were all fired. Gone. And once you're fired in that system, there's no work, right? But these 4 young people, I'm bouncing around a little bit, these 4 young people and this group of women who were in Afghanistan, they said, there is so much fear. There is so much hatred. There is so much oppression. And we can do what we can do, but we need all of us to do something. There's a great song that's do what you can with what you have and the time you have and the place you are. Do something. But they also said, I heard this several times, that the antidote to fear is joy. Bring joy. Sing. Sing a song. Look at the sky. Find joy. Because if you are expressing joy, you cannot be in fear at the same time. It might be only gone for a split second. But that joy, that trust in a divine being, a divine presence, and again, so many names for God. But that trust that we are here for a purpose and that we are not separate from, and that our God and everybody's God is essentially a benevolent God, that God isn't doing this to us, right? That was a common theme. God outside of us is not doing anything to us. That's one of our basic unity principles that we talk about all the time. But it's up to us. It's up to us because we are conscious co-creators. So when you come into a room, different panel that I went to, it again, it was very multi-faith. The moderator said, something to the effect of, well, here's, the 4 different faiths that were represented on that particular panel. And he said, just the fact that we're in the same room together is quite the miracle, and we're not killing each other is quite the miracle. Another theme was that if and when each tradition unites in itself, right? This came from one of the Sikh women I was speaking to. When we unite as our own tradition, as our own intra-faith, and we know exactly who we are and what we stand for, then we can more fully participate in the interfaith. And as each faith knows more and more who we are, then we can come together for that common good. Now that spoke to me because in unity we have no idea who we are. Seriously. I mean, we do, but we don't. But we don't know how to talk about it. So this brings us to really the theme that was created a long time ago, long before I was at the Parliament, of Unity Speak. How do we speak unity? How do we know so clearly who we are that we can give it voice? How do we give that voice? How do we bring that voice into the bigger conversation to make the world a better place? Right? To create a world that works for all. That was one of the taglines Unity Worldwide used, or Unity Association, whatever we're called now, Unity Worldwide Ministries used a few years ago. I heard it over and over again at the Parliament. We had some incredible people stopped by and spoke. We had Marianne Williamson. I got to hear her twice and got to get a selfie with her and dance with her. Michael Beckwith was there. He had a big position. Our 2 leaders of Unity had a big presence, but we were there as a part of what we call the New Thought. So we are now, we always have been, but New Thought is an actual recognized denomination. It's a funny word for us, but denomination inside. And the New Thought delegates had a greater percentage of people there than anybody else. That's cool. That's really cool. And all of our booths were right there in a row. Like we had a whole row of New Thought booths, which was really awesome. So there's also I want to tell a quick story. I went to a workshop, happened to be a friend of mine who I haven't seen in 20-some years, a colleague, Ed Kozak from Charleston. And he's from Chicago, so he come home and we connected. And he said, first of all, we ran into him in the hallway. We had the most deepest conversations, hallway conversations, I call them. You try to get to a workshop and you have a hallway conversation and you're transformed again. So Ed's doing this workshop and it's entitled Freedom of Thought. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I mean, yeah, there's so many choices, but I had a little window before I needed to be where I really needed to be. And so I went. And, actually, he was sharing this story beforehand, which is partly why I went. He said, when our egoic need to be right limits freedom of thought, maybe he didn't say it as a question. He said, our egoic need to be right limits freedom of thought. And then he so eloquently told the story. He is also a Buddhist. He is very much a peaceful practitioner and just lovely, as is his wife. They have 2 kids who are now 19 and 17. And probably about 5 years ago or maybe more, his youngest son began to think differently. Well, they committed very early on, before they even had kids, they were going to raise their kids to be free thinkers. I'm thinking, that's brave. And so when his youngest son was growing up, he started out by saying, he goes, I don't know where this kid came from, because he didn't come from me and he didn't come from my wife. So Ed is very, very liberal, very peace-based, very, no arms, no war, no guns. And this is not judgment on anybody's belief systems, because that's what we did over and over. It's not about what you believe. We need to see you in spite of, in the midst of, regardless of what you believe. And then here's this kid coming up as a 12-year-old. He loves guns. He wants guns so bad. He's in love with guns. He's in love with the Second Amendment. He's so conservative politically, and he's so conservative. It's like they are like polar opposites politically and many other ways. So Ed's like, what am I going to do with this, right? A 12-year-old's like, I really want guns. So because Ed's Ed, he sat down, and this happened over the course of time, and he said, okay, we're going to sit down. We're going to have a listening dialogue. I'm going to tell you what I believe, and I really want you to be able to hear me, but at the same time, I really want to hear you. And so they had this great conversation, and the child was eloquent, was thought through. There was nothing off. I mean, he had solid arguments, solid beliefs for everything he said. And Ed's just kind of blown away. He's like, what am I supposed to do with this? I teach freedom of thought. How can I not, right? And so at the end of the conversation, Ed says whatever he says about thank you for listening and hearing and all of that. And the child, who is still young, right, he says, well, thank you, Dad, for sharing your opinion. I just thought that was so funny. So they have found a way, and he had full permission to share the story, and he broadcast it, so I'm sure I have full permission. I'm sure I probably have full permission to share the story. but his whole thing was about how do we come together, heart to heart, soul to soul, when we have very different belief systems. And Ed modeled that, and the Parliament modeled that, and every panel I was on modeled that. And so how do we speak, unity speak? We have to be really clear about what we believe. I mean, it'd be wonderful if we as a movement got really clear about that today. But at least you get really clear about what you believe and why you believe it. There's a saying that says, why do you believe what you believe? For most of us, if we haven't paid attention to that question, it's only because somebody said it when we were a child, or our mother knew it, or our grandfather knew it, and we don't really know why we believe what we believe. So get clear about what you believe. We believe that there is but one presence and one power active in the universe. We call it God. Other people call it other names. It doesn't matter what we call it. We believe in the inherent goodness of people. Now, that doesn't excuse bad behavior. But we believe in the inherent goodness of people. And when we can begin to see a person's heart and soul, not the clothes they wear, the beliefs they wear, the stands they stand in, but when we can see more deeply a fellow human being, especially with a different belief system, with open hearts, we can then learn to listen better. The idea in listening circles is that we had sacred listening circles here probably a year ago now, maybe more than a year ago. And the idea in that is you're in a safe circle and you listen way more than you talk. and you listen with your heart, you listen with your soul, you find that commonality. You find that universal need. And then you connect at that point. It's only after you've had that connection that anybody might even be able to listen to anything else you have to say. That's the piece. We want to say and say and say and say and say and say and say. Well, they're not listening. They can't hear. Until, neither can we for that matter, until we open our heart and connect heart to heart and soul to soul and spirit to spirit. Speak your truth as your experience, as your opinion, not as the one and only truth in the universe. Matthew 13:9 says, anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. When you understand another, you can speak our unity beliefs, our principles in a way that they can understand. You're not going to talk calculus to a kindergartner who's trying to learn what 1 + 1 is. You're not going to talk Greek to a, well, maybe you would. I was going to say to a young child because they probably can understand better than me, right? You're going to use your language not to water down or soften your beliefs, but to empower them in ways. And most of all, my biggest takeaway is be in action. Do something. Do something. What is mine to do today? What is mine to do today? To be a bigger presence of peace, to take a stand for that which is important to me, to maybe it's a smile, maybe it's a meditation, maybe it's a prayer, maybe it's an action, maybe it's a drum circle or a flute circle, or maybe it's participating in the interfaith. I don't know what it is for you, but I know for me, I'm called to action. I know I've talked a little long today. Chris Farashon's not here to tell me how long I am, so let's take all of this into a time of meditation. Take a deep breath in and close your outer eyes. And just for a moment, let something that I said spark something in you. Might be a thought, might be an impulse, might be a confirmation, might be a feeling. For me, I'm leaning into the feeling of hope for humanity. So identify a quality and then open your mind, open your heart, open your very being. Feel or imagine like the top of your head just opening like a lotus flower, opening wider than it's ever been opened before. And in this opening, what is happening is you are being flooded with love, with light, with insight, with possibility. And let that opening of your crown move down to your heart space and feel your heart opening. Feel it opening out in front of you, like, again, like a lotus flower, just stretching, blooming, expanding. Look at the beauty there. Feel that beauty that is simply the reflection of your own self, reflected in the world. In that expansion of your crown and your heart. Feel the very presence that we call God in the quality that you have chosen. There is but one presence, one power, one energy, one creation in the universe. And you are part of that. Who you be is a piece of the mosaic called humanity. Shine your light. Imagine that light is a jewel of sorts in the center of your heart, and feel that expanding out. Feel that jewel that is you expanding out and connecting with every other jewel in this room, with every other jewel of anybody who's listening or watching today. And feel that brilliance. Feel the brilliant mosaic being lit up simply through the awareness. And lift that jewel, our collective mosaic. Lift it up above this building, up above this city, up above this country. And feel it encircling the globe, catching and attracting the jewels from people in every country, from every religion, from every possibility, coming into that which is good, good for all, good for our planet, good for our humanity, good for our marginalized. Feel that encircling the globe all the way around, coming right back down into this room, into your body, into your own heart, activated again. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Rest for a few moments in this knowing, in this activation. Take a breath in. Claim your quality as who you be today. As this quality, what is yours to do today, this week? Take a deep breath in. Feel the expansion in the room. And together we pray. And so it is. Amen. And amen.